Farewell and adieu, everybody. The beaches are closed for the 4th of July, and Mars on Life is back. I'm Ryan Mancini. I'm going to be your host, as always, for this special occasion, and joined with me, as always,
Sebastian Shug. Yeah, I'm pretty bummed about that, but there's a virus, so
well, hey, we've been talking for weeks about coronavirus and things were not going to improve, and opening the beaches was a bad idea, and it happened, and so now quarantine rebegins. But this episode's not going to be about coronavirus or quarantine. We have a special guest with us. Special guest, please introduce yourself.
Hey, my name's Amanda Sinks. I'm a filmmaker student, live here in SCV my whole life. Happy to be on the show. Thank you guys for having me.
You got it, yeah. Now, I guess kind of a brief little bit of background on kind of where we sort of found you. There was a recent protest regarding a Santa Clarita city councilman, Bob Keller, and this was a protest kind of generated towards him, and I filled Sebastian on this before recording about the anti-immigrant protest, where he said 10 years ago that he was a proud racist.
Yep.
And this time around, it was the polar opposite, where we had city council candidates saying, "No, I'm a proud anti-racist."
it would have been so much easier just to say, "Hey, I rescind my statement. I am no longer racist." But
yeah,
I feel like now it just created even more of a dialogue, and it's like, anyway, please fill us in.
Well, I guess, Amanda, kind of tell us a little bit about kind of what kind of your story in regards to that day.
Oh yeah, that was it's just crazy because like I remember I first came across the Bob Keller video when back. Remember when we had that Thursday protest that the city freaked out about?
Yes, that was the one that's
Okay.
supposed to have like 800 people.
Mhm.
Yeah, the fake one. Friday after, it was funny because like a week before that, I was planning a protest with my friend on Friday, and it was just crazy that we started hearing what was going on Thursday, and I was like, and I know some of the people that have been like organizing the protest, so I was like, hey, did you guys do this? What group is organizing this? And I couldn't get anyone to like own up to it. So I was like, dude, what the like, whose is this? What is going on? Like the city's blowing this all out of proportion. We can't even figure out like what's happening. And so Friday's protest, we were organizing that, and we made that protest be a march to City Hall, and like to speak out in front of City Hall and like demand what changes we want and like what we want the city to do. And during that week while I was planning it, I actually came across a Bob Keller video of him saying he's a proud racist. He was also quoting Teddy Roosevelt, I believe, and he didn't even do the whole quote. And like that wasn't the like whole message of the quote. He just like took a line from it and said one flag, one language. And I saw that whole video, and I was like, dude, this is our city council member. Like, how is he still, like, this is 2010. How is he still on the city council about to retire? Like, what is going to happen? So I like discovered that, and I made a speech that I was going to give at the protest. I also like, left it open for, people of color to talk about it, like their experiences and stuff like that. So we had like a little bit of an organized protest going on, and I just like could not believe that happened. And I was like, where was I when this happened like 10 years ago? I was so like thoroughly shocked. And then, so then we've been, everyone's been calling into the city council meetings and demanding change. And they want Bob Keller to like, one, apologize and then resign. That's what everyone wants right now. And I agree. I don't think he should get the luxury of retiring. He should be put out of office. Like that should be how he ended his career. Because as soon as he said, I'm a proud racist, like, I don't care if it was a mistake. As soon as someone says I'm a proud racist, they should not be holding any power over any government ever again. Because that's just not, you don't do that. You don't say things like that. I don't even care if it's an accident. Like, you don't. And then I think one of our local news stations like did an article on him after he said that, like back in 2010. and he didn't like apologize at all or like
Mm.
feel bad about what he said. And it was back then he didn't say anything, and then still he's not saying anything. And like, oh my God, the city council members are just saying, like Bill Miranda was like, oh, do you guys want like some like the right thing to happen, or do you guys just want like your flesh of meat? And like I was like, we don't like, what are you talking about, Bill?
Well, that's
We want
one way to put it.
I know. I was like, he's not, this isn't like we just want to get back at someone from all the oppression that Black people are getting. We know we want him to leave because of what he said, and we want to not replace it with Jason Gibbs. I think that's his first name. I know his last name is Gibbs.
Yeah, Jason Gibbs is his name. Yep.
Yeah, and we don't want to replace
He's got
it
an
with
interesting
him.
story too.
Yeah, no, I haven't heard too much about him because I'm just like, you know what? I'm just gonna tell people his name. Don't go there. Just get one of the other candidates that are a lot better suited for change in Santa Clarita. So it's been pretty entertaining to see just him get like ripped a new one every city council meeting. And like he just sits there like sulking. And I'm like, well, you've dug your own grave here, bro. So it's pretty amusing.
Well, did you, by any chance, did you happen to see, or I guess before I ask that, were you present for the, it was the SB 54 city council meeting 2 years ago? That was the city council meeting where the ultimate decision was that the city of Santa Clarita decided to side with the Trump administration in suing the state of California over the sanctuary state law.
Yeah. I didn't get to see that meeting, but my friend David actually works for one of the news outlets here. And we talk about it every now and then. So I didn't actually, because I was working and stuff, but
Right.
because back then I was a manager at Topper, so my life like revolved around working. That was it. All I had was my life. But yeah, and also they actually, this last meeting, they were talking about like no one, they kind of just like snuck this past everyone, but they said that they're gonna that Sacramento is gonna be making Santa Clarita like make like housing or something around the mall area.
Mm-hmm.
And like they're giving them a grant to like $500,000 to do it. And I was like, is it gonna, and like Bob Keller's like, I don't want Sacramento telling me what to do because I'm a proud racist and I do what I want. and so like everybody, he was the only one that voted against it, but Marsha was like, yeah, he always says that. And then Marsha was like, is this like, do we have to do this? Are our hands tied? And I think the city manager was like, yeah, we have to do it. So she voted for it. But I'm wondering, I'm like, can we use that money to make affordable housing? I was like, can we have that an option over there or like somewhere close to like the city and not in a shitty spot? But I don't know. I think the city council, that's what I heard a lot of talk at the Bob Keller meeting, because we had at the Bob Keller protest, we had the new city council members, the ones that are running for the 2 seats. They were talking a lot about like affordable housing. Like they're talking about a lot of stuff, but affordable housing is what I was like really happy about. I was like, cool, they know that we need a little bit better affordable housing here because we have a housing crisis in Los Angeles. And like I'm turning 26 next month. I'm going to school. I still live with my parents. I moved out of town for a little while, but then like I came back and like I'm going to school now. So it's so hard to find anywhere, being a full-time student and like a part-time employee.
Yeah.
Getting any apartment anywhere, it's just like so hard to do. So I wish that, people, and like imagine just like having a family. Just like, how do they afford living out here when they have to because like the school or their job or something? Like it just sucks. So I just hope that like the new candidates try to do something like affordable housing or like something where they have like an area of the city where it's like, they actually put some money behind it, but it's still not like, I just don't know why we have to put so much money into parks. Like we have a jillion parks in the city, the cops will kick you out as soon as the sun sets. So why are we putting all this money into parks when like all of them are empty most of the time? And I know they just put money in like a park that's meant for kids with like disabilities, which is great. But I'm like, why wouldn't you just add on to the parks that we have and make it accessible? instead of building one gigantic, I don't even know how big it is. I honestly can't tell you, but I think they're making that project happen. But instead of building for one park in one specific part of town, why don't they like make all the other parks exclusive? So like one family doesn't have to drive 30 minutes across town in
Mm-hmm.
traffic because it takes forever to get anywhere in SCV now because our light systems are stupid as well.
Oh yeah.
And instead of like driving 30 minutes across town to get to the park that your kid that's like is in a wheelchair that can't really play on anything else to this one park that they built, why don't they just make every park inclusive and put that money towards like making, accessible or like playgrounds or like things that they can do that they pretty much they just like break up the park that you built and put it throughout all the other parks. I don't know why they didn't do that instead, but
Well, they're even and granted, I haven't followed up on this, but at one point within the last few years, they were sitting on the city council was sitting on a ton of money that was meant to go towards the homeless shelters out here.
mhm.
And at some point, the homeless shelters were like, "Hey, where's the money?" And the
Yeah.
city like basically ghosted them. And going back to that city council meeting, it was long story short, it was probably one of the first wake up calls that we're living in Trump's America,
Mhm.
because you definitely had a lot of people that, and obviously with a lot of the recent protests and rioting, you always have a lot of reactionary people say, "Oh, well, these people are coming from out of town to cause chaos."
Mhm.
Well, at this city council meeting, everybody who was backing both the city council and the White House were out of town people.
That's
And
weird.
the left opposition, I can verify 100% they were local. And I know they were local because I had at least 2 or 3 high school reunions that night. Like, it was one of those things where I was like, "Hey, dude, I didn't know you were involved in politics. This is great."
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
the whole thing was theater. The council had already made a decision. I had somebody tell me, they've already made their decision, but they want to have this theater for the next 8 hours, and that's exactly what
Cool.
they got. I didn't get home until like 2 in the morning, I think. The
Damn.
thing ended at like 1:30, and the next night, Bob Keller goes on Fox News to talk with Laura Ingraham, so Laura Ingraham can brag about how Northern LA County loves Trump. And
Ugh.
it's kind of like the fact that you would do that to show off your victory by going on to, your petty team's news channel, quote unquote,
Yeah.
just to be like, "Oh, look, liberal Los Angeles likes Trump too." Like, get out of here with that.
Yeah.
It was so nauseating. Well, I guess to kind of give our listeners kind of a better idea on who you are, I guess what I take it you grew up here in Santa Clarita, right?
Yep. Yep. I grew
Um,
up. I went to Valencia High School, graduated 2012.
mhm. Okay. And I guess, a lot of people, myself especially, and I say myself especially because I am my own person. But like, you know, uh, have you done any kind of reflection on, everything going on right now and kind of reflecting back on, sort of similar times going to school? So like, for example, seeing, you know, bigotry and racism where you went to school and thinking,
Yeah.
wrong, why isn't the
Yeah.
school intervening?
Yeah. There was actually like, luckily, well, I was kind of like, I wasn't a popular kid. I was definitely a weirdo. Like they made like because I was like really hyper when I was little, and like
Hmm.
I don't really give a fuck. Like I'm one of those people that like just does whatever she wants, and like you can say what you want, but I don't care. And so, people either thought I was like really funny or they thought I was really annoying. There was like no in between with me. So like you either hated me or you liked me. So I kind of just like stayed away from like the quad area and like where the popular people hung out. And like
Hmm.
I remember though that they called at Valencia High School, they called like certain areas like Africa and like Asia and like White Town, and like they like segregated the whole quad. I was like, I'm just gonna be by the gym. Fuck you guys. Like I don't know anything that's happening over here. So I just like, I kind of just stayed away from all that, but definitely like, I don't know, it was rough. It's just like, it's rough for anyone growing up in SCV if you're not like a cookie cutter perfect little white person. Like, I hate to
Mhm.
be like kind of blunt about that, but like I was white, so I never like experienced any like oppression or like discrimination because I'm white or because of my skin. But I did get bullied a lot because like I was like weird. Like, I wasn't a normal little kid like doing
Mhm.
like, dressed in like a normal t-shirt and jeans. Like, I wore weird shit sometimes too. So like, um, I was just hyper all the time too, and like ADD. I just didn't pay attention in class, so I wasn't like a good student either. So that
Mhm.
it was hard for me to fit in anywhere. So I get when like people I'm seeing all these like shades of SCV and all the high schools
Yep.
on Instagram. And I
Yep.
just like, my heart breaks for them because I understand, like, I don't understand fully because like it's not my race that they outed me with. It was just because I was a freak of nature that they outed me with. So
Mhm.
I understand what it feels to be like exiled from people or like made fun of for people or like people making like uncomfortable comments to you. So I totally get that part of it. But it's still
Mhm.
like some of the things that they tell me, I'm just like, oh my God, like I can't, like it sucked for me. I can't imagine what you went through. Like, that must have really been a shitty experience. So I just like, a
Mhm.
heart breaks for all of them. I'm reaching out to some of them like, hey, I have a safe platform if you want to talk about it. We're trying to make, a difference here. Um, whatever you're comfortable doing with, we can keep you anonymous in the film if you want
Mhm.
to like just stare at them face on and be like, fuck you, this is what happened to me, something needs to change. Because that's kind of like the point of the doc that I'm making is just to get these stories heard so that city council and like the school board and all the adults in SCV can't be like, oh, no one, like, nothing is happening like this in Santa Clarita, it's a perfect little town.
Yep.
So like, that's going to be the purpose of this, is pretty much to slap them in the face and be like, no, this is what your children and your like the people that I grew up with, like what they've experienced too. So it's like, you've had generations now from, because like when were the kids that were graduating in 2020? When were they born? Like
Uh, two,
2001,
2001, 2002. Yeah.
something like that. Yeah. So like, I was in elementary school and like now they're graduated. So it's crazy to think like you have and like even my sister's generation, which is 5 years before me, each generation is getting, you know, the same thing over and over and over and over again. Like the sexual
Mhm.
assault that I'm hearing that's happening. I'm like, yeah, I knew girls that happened to. Some shit. Luckily I didn't deal with any of that because again, I was like a loser, so no one was like, nah, stay away. But after high school, when I started partying more, like I started getting into the party scene a little bit. Um, uh, I went through shit like that, so I understand like where they're coming from. So it's just crazy that every year or every 4 years when that high school is like new people, it's just insane that it's just happening. Like the football team is like passing around nudes, like some teachers are saying racist shit, and like I
Mhm.
just can't believe that it's just happening over and over again and no one's saying anything. So I just want it to stop. And I know that people that experience things, like some people are like, oh, this is really great. I want to stand up for everything that's happened to me, and I want to like tell them what I want change in, because that's what it's going to be. They're going to like talk about their story and like their
Yeah.
experiences and what happened, and then I'm going to ask them like, what do you want for change? Like how many, like I'll probably talk about like how many people do you know that this happened to, the same thing, or if you know anybody else that has experienced something like this. And then
Mhm.
then we can kind of like tell them like, yeah, her and her whole group of friends dealt with this shit and it's been happening since I was in high school. So and then they'll tell directly to the camera and look everybody in the face and be like, this is what we want for change. And
Yeah.
like talk about how they want their city to be better. And it'll be their personal, like what they want. So hopefully it'll bring some attention. Hopefully city council can't just sweep this under the rug.
Hopefully. I mean, it's a tricky thing, especially with SCV City Council. I mean, I know that our mayor has been sitting down with a few local groups talking
Mm-hmm.
about, requests for change. And while I think, it's definitely good PR, however, you're arguably sending in the one person who's probably the most reasonable to talk to on the city council. And
Who, Smythe?
yeah, Cameron Smythe.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
because from what I've known from people who have had to interview him or sit down with him for some reason, whether it's typically work purposes, but
Mm-hmm.
people that I've known who've talked with him, they like him, they think he's a nice guy, et cetera, et cetera. But that's the thing, is that he's the nice guy. He's dad on the council. He's basically, when mommy says no, you go to dad.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way this is, where it's like, no, we want granddad to resign. We don't want to talk with dad and have a logical discussion, because, as much as I want to think those logical discussions are going to, better places,
Mm-hmm.
are they being implemented? And I think, given that they've been so hard pressed about the fireworks and our big firework,
Well, that got canceled, right?
And it did. LA County just outright said it's canceled due to
COVID.
due to coronavirus.
Yeah.
And the city, of course, lashed back saying, hey, this is last minute. Why didn't you tell us earlier? Blah, 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 blah.
Oh my God,
Personally, I
whatever.
don't think they would have liked any answer that LA County would have given them, given how much they detest it. And I guess and before I get to asking more about the documentary, I suppose, because how many weeks ago was it, Sebastian, that we had Crystal, Mike, and Sean on the show? Was it like 2 or 3 weeks ago?
I want to say about, let's see, I was in Colorado. I want to say about 2-3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And all three of them had gone to separate protests all around SoCal, and in a lot of ways that whole episode was dedicated to the three of them storytelling. And I guess in your case, when everything really kind of got started around, I think it was Memorial Day that George Floyd was killed, when you saw everything happening all across the country, I guess, what was your initial response to the protests happening?
Well, I remember seeing like protests happening, and then I remember there was this big protest here Saturday. That was the first protest that happened in Santa Clarita with multiple people. But that Saturday was the Saturday before the Thursday protest. That one. And on Friday before Saturday, I just like was seeing this shit on TV, and I was like, why isn't anyone in SCV protesting? Like, everyone was so quick, like 200 people plus were so quick to protest about getting a haircut. Like, why isn't anyone protesting about someone dying when he's telling them I can't breathe? And so it was early in the morning. I was watching the news, seeing some like what's happening. And I just went to Walmart and I got a pack of poster board, and I went to like Home Depot and I got the painting sticks and like some Sharpies, and I just made like 3 posters, and I put like, one was like, why aren't 200 people protesting right now? One was like, all lives matter. All lives can't matter until, I said, in order for all lives to matter, Black lives need to matter. And then I said, I had one more sign. I can't remember what I put, but I just went out by myself and just stood on the corner and just was like on Valencia McBean, because I knew that's where all the protests always happen. So I just stood on the corner and just had my 3 signs and was just hanging out. I was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm not working. I didn't have school that day. So I just decided to do it. And then my friend David came out because he works for the local news, and he's like, I made a statement with him, and I told him like, I'm going to be out here again next Friday if anyone wants to join me. And then that's when that night I texted my friend Tori, who I made the protest with, that next Friday, and was like, Tori, let's make this a big thing. And then I also that night I heard about Saturday's protest, and I was like, thank God, like someone is making like an actual protest because I was getting worried that we weren't going to do it. And then so Saturday was a big protest and Sunday was a protest, I think. And
Mhm.
then and then the Thursday one blew up. And then Friday we organized, and then it's just been going. And I've been to pretty much most of them. I've had like, I think last Sunday I didn't like yes last Sunday I didn't go to it because I had my finals this week. So I just was like, all right, Sunday I'm cramming everything into that one day so I could do the other protests. So sometimes I miss the protests, but that's because that's my like I've procrastinated all my schoolwork that day. And I'm like, okay, I can miss one to do my schoolwork. But for the most part, I try to make it out to everyone of the
Mhm.
protests. And like Juneteenth, I made sure I went out to that one. And I'm also talking to people there. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to get people to come because the more testimonials I have for this doc, the more powerful I think it'll be.
Mhm.
And if I get a lot of testimonials and I get enough like for sexual assault, I get enough for racism and like, what it's like to be Black in Santa Clarita. And if I get enough on maybe the city council and like the past of Santa Clarita, I can
Mhm.
maybe make it like a doc series, a docu-series, depending on how much I get.
Mhm.
So, which I'm not against because I could get creative with what I can really hone in on one topic for each episode. But
Mhm.
if I get just enough to make a full like a feature length doc, then that's what I'm probably going to plan on doing.
And where did you kind of develop the idea, or when did you sort of develop the idea for a documentary?
It was actually the not last city council meeting, but the one before that.
Mhm.
I was just like listening to city council, just like be like, what? Not us. Like I just kept hearing them like defend nothing. Bob Keller's racist remarks. They just were defending it, and then I heard it was Marsha. Marsha drives me nuts, dude. I can't. And also, Lorraine. She was like talking about the Fourth of July special parade thing or something. Like she talked 15 minutes about that, and I was like, no one cares. Like no one cares. No one's talking about this. No one cares. We're all gonna be stuck at home for Fourth of July, so no one cares. Why are we talking about this? And then Marsha was like, no one. It's like, what did she say? She was like, no one thinks SCV is racist. How dare you think we're racist? How dare you call our city racist? She said something along those lines. And I just like my first thought was like, I have I know people that like live in Lancaster and Palmdale and they don't like us. They don't like coming to Santa Clarita. They don't like dealing with the people. Well, they don't mind like the place. They just don't like the
Mhm.
people in Santa
I've never
Clarita
seen
at
such a
all.
greater density of white people than the desert that is Santa Clarita. I'm
Mhm.
sorry,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
because it's like you're gonna say this and be represented by a conglomerate of people who look practically identical.
Yeah,
No.
it's a cookie cutter place and no one likes us. No one likes Santa Clarita. Everyone in Santa Clarita is trying to leave Santa Clarita. Like
Yeah.
growing
Oh
up,
yeah.
they're like, I need to get out of SCV. And like no one cares about the politics. And the reason why like he was on for so long and is like about to retire for Bob Keller is that all the like I know everyone that I know that I'm friends with, they're like, yeah, I
Mhm.
never paid attention to anything that happens in the SCV politics. And they're like, we just want to ignore it, not deal with it because we don't
It's like a
we
lost
don't
cause
care.
to them.
Yeah, and we don't think we're gonna change anything. And I was like, dude, like Bob Keller got voted in, they all got voted in, and we can make a change. We just have to shove it in their faces and down their throats until they're sick of hearing it because that's the only way it's gonna change. And like that, and they're like starting to realize that now with all the protests that are happening. So I'm really
Mhm.
I really have like tipped my hat to the like high schoolers and they just recently graduated or like the juniors and seniors of the high school right now because they're the ones that's like driving the force behind all this. And I like
Yeah.
can't. I was like, dude, you guys are you when you guys grow up and you start running this country, that's when like corporations and asshole politicians better like watch themselves when like these people start growing up because they're gonna really start like shaking some shit up in DC if any of them want to be politicians. But
Oh, no
I just
question.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the whole situation with the city council and Santa Clarita at large, especially with the politics and pretty much lived out here a good chunk of my life. And if you ask my folks, you know, I mean, now they could probably tell you who at least one city council member is.
Yeah.
But even before, even when I was still in college, they didn't know who any of them were.
Yeah.
And on top of that, at least where I live, we can't even vote for the city council because I live in unincorporated LA County. Therefore, even though I basically live off the city of Santa Clarita, I have no say in its local government except for the assembly and Congress.
Mm.
So it's kind of like, I have to live with this. And basically the most I can do is encourage people who are SCV, well, specifically Santa Clarita residents, to vote,
That's
because,
weird.
yeah. And on top of that, I think, and I don't know if you've encountered this too. I know I've brought it up with Sebastian before on the show. I know that something that a lot of the protesters have said is, oh, Bob Keller, we need to make sure he doesn't win again, or we need to make sure he stays out of the city council. And, that's the thing, is that he's retiring.
Mm-hmm.
So it won't even be like he's not on the ballot, even though by proxy, if Jason Gibbs is on the ballot, then yes, Bob Keller is on the ballot.
Yeah, just don't get Gibbs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and from what I've heard about Jason Gibbs, he runs a
Anti-Muslim,
page.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And on top of that, it's just kind of like the idea that the city doesn't think it has these problems. It just baffles me because a lot of the stories, and especially, I follow the, and I guess I'll explain it to our listeners and Sebastian, because I know you mentioned the shades of all the different high schools, and I haven't debriefed Sebastian on that. Basically, you've got a whole bunch of, and I'm assuming it's local high schoolers that are behind them. I mean, I'm not going to give away any names.
Well, there's some, and it's also like past high schoolers too.
Okay. But they're basically working on these Instagram accounts where people can send in anonymous testimonials about any kind of discrimination they faced while at any of the local high schools.
Yeah. And
they've got one from my high school, which my sister also went to. But yeah, my sister pointed it out to me, and and I don't know, maybe Sebastian, I'll send the URL right now on Instagram. But the testimonials are heartbreaking. I mean, and I think seeing all of this, and especially, after going to West Ranch High School for 4 years and, always kind of feeling like I was the last man standing in regards to, standing up to any kind of misinformation, bigotry, discrimination of any kind. Like it was one of those things for me that became it was tedious, but I never stopped, because at least back then, my thought was, I'm more than willing to burn bridges with a lot of these kids because they can't give up their reprehensible views on things.
Yeah, and that's hard for people to do now.
Yeah. I came out as an atheist, and people were looking at me like I was saying the N-word every time I said atheist. And I'm like,
was it really that bad where you were? I mean, Christ sakes, here in Burbank, you could pretty much identify with anything and everything, and you would at least have some facet of the high school that would accept you. I mean, typically it would be the art kids, but that was just kind of par for the course. Was it really that bad where you were?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was.
Crap. Well, we also had when they were trying to pass that, trying to make it so it's legal for gay people to marry in California back in like 2010 or whatever it was. Mm-hmm. We had a ton of, no was to make it so they would marry, and yes, so they couldn't marry. And there was a lot of people against it, and like a lot of yeses on prop, whatever it was. And I couldn't believe how many people like in their front lawns were saying like, yes on prop this, yes on prop this. I was like, what the hell? Like, who cares? Like, are you going to see them? No, they're going to live in their house and be married. Like, who cares?
I had a girlfriend at the time who was, she might have been president of West Ranch's Gay Straight Alliance, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And she couldn't believe how both the school and students were handling that proposition. And it's, no, Sebastian, it was like the amount of monotonous, crazy stuff that I would hear. Like I was listening to people that would brag about anything from, how effective of a leader Hitler was to, somebody once said to me, and they spat at my feet after they said this, they said, "Oh, Ryan, you're an atheist. That means you hate Catholics." And I was like, I literally gave them the textbook definition of atheism, because I was like, okay, clearly you're about to graduate high school, and yet you still need a dictionary.
I mean, there was, I'll admit, I think, because you graduated high school in what, 2013? 13?
Yeah,
okay. So I graduated in 2016. There was definitely a bigger there was definitely a bigger PC shift when it came to identifying yourself with certain attributes. Now I think it's just kind of gone par for the course of, you're attempting to distinguish yourself like religiously. That's cringe kind of thing, That's how it was in 2016. I didn't know you were actually getting like fucking bullied for it,
Well,
like we would just take pot shots because that was kind of how it was always depicted. Like, this is the fucking atheist Reddit user in the back of the class espousing Richard Dawkins quotes every 5 seconds, and it was like, okay, I guess that's kind of cool, like. But we didn't think of it as, a strike on the person's overall character.
Right. Yeah. Oh, it was bizarre.
Yeah,
I mean,
West Ranch was pretty bad. I heard a lot of horror stories from West Ranch.
Well, and something else as well that to this day bothers me is the whole hat rule at West Ranch. And I don't know if your high school had a similar rule where
you couldn't wear hats.
You couldn't wear hats unless it was from the school. Well,
yeah.
I guess.
No, we didn't have that. No, we didn't have that.
So what did, I guess, kind of to like go into detail about that. They did that. They enforced that to regulate the whole like gang affiliation. Now, if you've ever stepped foot in fucking Burbank,
or is it racial profiling?
You would not see a single gang member in the gated community that is Burbank. And I'm not saying this from a privileged point of view. I'm saying this realistically because nearly nobody at my school would actually kind of stoop to that level. You know what I mean? And act that way. Right. Now, yes, when it came down to like school affiliation, that was allowed, but ball caps, you may as well have been wearing the fucking armband with the swastika on it. That's how it was depicted, where it was, same thing with hoods too. I don't know what it was about hoods, but God, you just opened up Pandora's box. Because I was never that kid, even when I went through my quote unquote douchebag phase where I like would wear sunglasses and button ups and like pop the collar a little bit. Even then I would be like, it'd be cool to wear a hat, but better not push it. God knows.
Right.
Yeah, West Ranch is like own little cult.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and like for me, I was growing up at I can't remember if I did it in junior high, but I know in elementary school I'd wear a hat a lot. So much so that I actually still have that hat, and I've been wearing it because my hair has gone wild. But it's grown a life of it. It's got a whole life of its own now.
Got that COVID hair.
Oh yeah. But I remember somebody I know on the school newspaper at West Ranch, which was kind of where it's not where I got my journalism start, but it was definitely one of my first steps. Somebody that I knew and frequently quarreled with. Thus, everybody thought her and I should get married. That's another story. Like she wrote an op-ed basically saying why the hat rule was ridiculous. And apparently the vice principals like dragged her in and explained to her why they have that rule. And it's like, look, if I'm wearing a brand name,
like a sports team or anyone that you...
It could be the Dodgers or hell, it could be, I mentioned Star Wars earlier. It could just be the Star Wars logo. Like, if I'm wearing the Star Wars logo, I'm not affiliated with any gang.
Yeah, there's no gang.
Because trust me, you're not affiliated with any gang if you rocked the shit that my high school, the people at my high school went to. If you're rocking shit from Hot Topic, you're not in a gang, okay?
Yeah. Ripping that Disney.
You're just going through a phase now, okay?
Yeah.
I would see countless. It was the snapback and like dyed hair combo, and it was just like, oh, you're one of those people.
Snapbacks.
Yeah.
Well, and then to boot, right after I graduated, my sister started attending West Ranch, and she told me they got rid of that rule. So when 2015 and 2016 rolled around, and a dang cheetah was running for president, there were apparently students wearing MAGA hats on campus.
Really?
Wow.
And it's like, so you telling me, because I would always make a specific argument that I'm not going to repeat here, but, if I wore a hat from a company whose founders were Jewish, that makes me part of a gang. But if I wear a hat that's affiliated with hate, like real visceral hate and dividing Americans, that doesn't make me a gang member? Like, get out of here with that, and it bothered me. And I know it's kind of a material thing, but it still bothers me a bit because it's the context of it.
Yeah.
Well, come on, Mancini, it's patriotic. It's like, and that's the excuse. No, that's the excuse they would give, right?
Of course.
We didn't have the neocon neocucks at my school as much,
Yeah, they're all coming out of the shadows there.
Yeah, it was more so like they held these conservative beliefs while in high school, but because they were in high school and they had to see these people every day for the past 4 years, they didn't have an outlet to express it. Some people that I went to high school with have since taken to social media to express it. And it's like, okay, I knew that you were at least moderately conservative to some degree, but why are you out here trying to be fucking Dan Bilzerian? Okay?
Yeah.
Why are you out here trying to sell me a bunch of shit, whether it be life advice or dietary habits or weightlifting, being like, oh, well, I'm doing this from the ground up, her bootlicker. Like I get the drive where after high school you genuinely want to start defining who you are as a person.
Yeah, and think for yourself.
Can you do it? Like, could they do it in a less inspired way?
Yeah.
Yeah. And Mancini, you and I kind of had this conversation regarding a few individuals that we know. I won't name names, obviously, but it's like, why should I listen to you? There's thousands of other people doing this exact same thing, thinking that they have the best lifestyle because they wake up at a certain time, eat the right foods, and work out with the right equipment. Oh, and have the right mindset. Can't forget that. And it's like, dude, yeah, I get it. After high school, you are just kind of thrown into the Lazarus pit and you have to crawl through its digestive tract. I get it. But you cannot...
Doesn't the Lazarus pit just bring you back to life?
Oh, not the Lazarus pit. I'm sorry. A fucking Sarlacc pit.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. We're on brand this episode with Star Wars. With a guest too.
Yeah, you guys are really nerding out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
No, you're thrown into this pit and you're expected to traverse your way out while all the while establishing your identity. And it's like, dude, you are the most uninspired individual I've ever seen. And these are the people coming out of the woodwork of being like, oh, I was conservative the whole time. It's like, all right, what? You didn't have to be an asshole about it, but
yeah.
Right. Well, I don't know, Sebastian, if you had any questions for Amanda. I know we've kind of painted a very grim picture of Santa Clarita for you, but
I just thought it was empty. Okay, I just thought it was one big empty city. I didn't expect it to be this bad.
Well, it's just like no one's done anything to like stop change, like or start change. Like no one's done anything to stop what's happening. So it's just you've grown up in generations where they just think that this kind of behavior is okay.
Right.
And like they teach their kids that this kind of behavior is okay. And then you never have anyone trying to, change the cycle and break the cycle and change it for better. Like it's just crazy. Like I still can't believe that we have a city council. Like we have city council members. It's been on the city council since like I was born. Like I don't understand how that is legal and how that's okay. I feel like they should be like, it could, I don't know. I just think they should be voted out and they like rotate the mayor. Like they rotate the mayor through each other. I'm like, what? How do we not vote for our mayor every time?
That's something that I've encountered a lot in my journalism career covering different cities. I know the city of Beverly Hills is kind of the same way.
Oh, we want to be like rich and powerful. It makes sense.
Well, it's just bizarre because not every city council is created equally. When I finally started understanding how LA City Council works, I was like, hey, wait a minute. Why doesn't Herb Wesson get to be mayor? Oh, wait a minute. And you go through this deep, dark hole of logistics as to why, Garcetti's above the city council and not present with the city council when they hold their meetings to the public. It's really bizarre. And, I guess I've despite all of the upset and frustration that I've had, whether it's reading the testimonials from students, and my heart breaks because not to sound like grandpa, but in my day it felt like there were very few people speaking up or speaking out.
No one talks, like nothing happened. Like you also have to think about the culture that's like what they grow up with. There's a lot more like LGBTQ friendly like shows, like TVs like that. There's a lot of Instagram and like a lot of people that are like have different sexual orientation. So like now it's a little bit easier for people to start being accepted. And I think the LGBTQ community has gotten so big in Santa Clarita because it's now pop culture has kind of accepted it a lot better. But back when I was growing up, there definitely wasn't a lot on TV about that stuff. So I feel like now they're growing up a little bit more accepting, but then you also still have like the conservative kids that grew up with parents that are set in their ways. So like they're not gonna let them come out.
Yeah. The like I said earlier, like the neocon conservative identity is like, dude, it's not even like you're taking it away from your parents at this point. It's like you're taking it and you're amplifying it to such a asinine direction where it's
they don't have any facts behind it either.
And they don't have any facts.
They're just saying what's trending.
I can understand. I can even understand, playing devil's advocate for a second here, if you want to look at conspiracy theories for the humor of it, being like, okay, this is fake, obviously fake, and this is the shit that people come up with. Okay, few laughs here and there, but it's like, why are people taking this? Why is it so kitsch to such a point that they're taking this and believing it to be true just because, oh, well, it's one of the most popular forums ever to grace the internet? And it's like, dude, really? I'm not saying that the news is biased, because of course it is, but it's like, why wouldn't you look at several sources, most of which don't even align with one's opinions, to establish a middle ground for yourself? It's not that hard.
And it's like, why don't you just also testify with people that like you don't have to go down to LA to know that there's police brutality. There's shit happening here in Santa Clarita. All you gotta do is listen to your fellow person, neighbor, community person. Like it's not that hard to just listen to someone that's has experience. Like that's hard facts right there. Like that's your witness. That's your person that dealt with it. Just listen to what they have to say.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I guess on that very topic, because I think that's something that to some degree, Sebastian and I mean, we've been around the bush. We unfortunately know how this country works. I guess to kind of get your take on it, with Santa Clarita having the history that it has and having the community that, you know, there's a small group of people that love the city council and roots for them every time. There's a large group of people in Santa Clarita that have a good feeling in regards to law enforcement. Like,
well, you're also
I think it's
we're a cop city too. Like all of
yeah,
LAPD, all of anyone, they live in Simi Valley and Santa Clarita.
correct.
That's
Yep.
where all of the LAPD officers. It's like a cop family neighborhood. It's pretty much what Santa Clarita is.
And it's on top of that, I think when it comes down to, I mean, because I think while I advocate the protests, I've been in the protests, I'm so thankful that this is happening, especially now. I think it's just the hope that something will change and something will move forward. Obviously, we got November coming up, and obviously down ballot votes count just as much as the top of the ballot.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that with new candidates, or hell, even before the election, do you think gradual changes will begin, at least coming out of the city council over the next few months? Or
I
what's
mean,
kind of your take on that?
the city council better be like, I hope they're all like pissing themselves in their chairs. Like they all should know that everyone's very angry and we're very upset about what's happening and the fact that they haven't taken an anti-racist stand against anything until like they posted a statement. Like they haven't come out and like talked with anybody and actively taken an anti-racist stand. Like the fact that they're doing that, and the fact that now the younger generations, the ones that are able to vote now, are kind of waking up and snapping out of it and like paying attention to what's actually happening. So they all better be scared, because I'm not going to stop until I think we need to reform, honestly, a little bit of our local government and try to get it better. Like we need to rotate out the city council members and the ones that have been on there since forever. They need to be out. Like they're too behind what's happening. Like last year was the first year that we had an LGBTQ plus like acceptance month. Like last year is when it happened. But like that's too long for that to be happening. So I just think that honestly, we just need to change everything that's going on in there, and everyone that has to kind of come together on this and demand what we want. And I think we just need to get a better city council altogether.
And even this year, they were praising, celebrating Juneteenth, and as far as I can tell, this was probably the first time that the city of Santa Clarita has ever acknowledged Juneteenth.
Yeah, they didn't even really acknowledge it. Bill was like, we made it, and I was like, I don't remember seeing you there. No one remembers seeing you there, but you could. And if you're just lurking if you're gonna lurk in the corner about it, like, why are you a city council member? Like, you should be up front, proudly saying, like, hey, I'm your city council member. I'm proud to be here. What can I do to help? What can I listen to? What do you guys have to say? Like, is Santa Clarita treating your businesses correctly? Like, there's all kinds of things you could be doing as a city council member. And we have I remember I was listening to the LA County Sheriff meeting they had a little while ago.
Mm-hmm.
And it had, I think, the chief of LA, the whole LA City Council, and then the chief of, LA Sheriff, sorry, and then the chief of Santa Clarita, and they're answering questions. And during it, they said that they had this hotline number where you can call and complain about a deputy, and like they have this whole task force to investigate it. And I was like, my whole 25 years of living, I've never heard or seen this number be broadcast and like educated to its people that this is there for their protection against wrong officers. Never have I heard that. And so I questioned in, and I was like, why haven't you guys been like city council? I mean, Santa Clarita has a Facebook, a Twitter, an Instagram. This SCV Sheriff's has a Facebook, a Twitter, and Instagram. And then there's also the LA County Sheriff's Office. And like, well, it's on the LA County Sheriff's Office. I'm like, you know how hard it is to get like navigate through that stupid website that was probably like made when and the internet was born. Like it's the shittiest website to navigate through.
I had to go on that website for work, and it was not easy trying to find events.
Anything to do anything. It's so like you feel like you're old, like you feel like you're a grandmother, and you're like, I have lost touch with technology. That's how shitty it is. And so, but they have all these other platforms where they can instantly get information into people's hands within a millisecond. And they choose not to put, like, all they had to do is make an announcement like once a fucking month and be like, hey, if you've received any injustices from our department, call this number. Let us, because like that's such a big social issue that's going on right now. Why won't you get ahead of that and be like, hey, we've been like, there's a lot of police brutality. We don't want to be like, as the LA Sheriff's County, we don't want to be associated with that. Here's our number to make sure that we're not doing anything wrong. Like we're here to have you listen to you. Like we could set up meetings. Like I don't understand why none of them are handling any of that. And I asked them, I was like, why don't you guys post about it? And like, well, it's on the website and here's the number. And that's all and then they like shut me up and they like it's said this other bullshit that like it was long story.
Thing.
Yeah.
Or it's just like, oh, don't worry, we have this number that's always been there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't get it. I was just like, I was so dumbfounded when they kind of like, he kind of was talking about this like bullshit story. Like the commander just like talked and talked and talked. And I had a response to say something like, because I was like, well, that doesn't make sense. Why don't we just do it this way? And like they didn't let me talk again. And they just went to the next person. I was like, wow, this is really, really informative and really a two-way street. It's definitely not one way.
It's difficult. It's tricky. And there's so much change that needs to happen for this country to heal. And, I genuinely believe this documentary is going to be an eye-opener. I definitely hope that people listen to it, that people notice how powerful it's going to be. And, I think kind of since we're going to be wrapping up in just a few minutes, and not to play devil's advocate, but I guess what do you think could happen if the city sees the video and just moves on or does nothing? Do you think you'll do more of a series then, or?
It depends on if I make it a film or if I make it a series, it'll depend on how I do it. If I do end up making a film about it and city council doesn't chooses to ignore it, I will be putting it in film festivals and putting it out into the world. It'll be, if someone messaged me, she's like, is all the proceeds to the film going to charity? I was like, this is like student film status where it's going to be made for free. People are volunteering their time. We're going to I might have to pay for it to get it out into the world. So if anything, I would be willing to put a little bit of money behind it and get it. If SCV does not take the testimonials of its own citizens correctly, I will be pushing so hard. They will make me public enemy number one, and I will be pushing that that movie everywhere where everyone can see it. And I'm just so everyone knows what Santa Clarita is like, and then it becomes a bigger issue, I'll make it so they can't ignore it. It's pretty much what I'll do if they choose to ignore it.
Ignorance isn't bliss. And, the idea that anybody is going to ignore any testimonial from young people in this town, it would be shameful because, when you already, when city council members already say things like, oh, there's no racism here, or it's not a racist city.
And they've been ignorant this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, well, clearly you're not getting forwarded all those messages from people that are complaining about dealing with some kind of discrimination within their community, and I think given that the schools are letting so much happen.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe that they've gone to administration and administration hasn't done anything. That was so shocking.
It's just, and this kind of iron fist mentality where no matter how right you are or, how much of a common sense person you are, the fact that they can still dictate that you're wrong on anything from a rule about hats to, God knows whatever other topic, it's just laughable. And I'm so thankful that I got to see you last week, and I'm genuinely thankful for this documentary. It's decades overdue, but you know what? Better sooner than never. And I'm so thrilled, and we'll definitely be following up on the documentary, and
Awesome.
especially
Yeah,
for
I'll let
everybody
you
who's
guys know
on.
once we start filming and it's that I've edited it together. I plan on I'm gonna try to see if I can get like a permit or some shit at like the park and get just like a sheet and my projector and just like
Mhm.
play it one night or like a few nights on weekends for like people to come see it, for free kind of a thing. I'm gonna try
Yeah,
to get
do it.
that happening if I can. And then, like I said, if they don't listen, I'm just gonna do whatever I can to like shove it in their face.
Now, since some of our listener base is in Santa Clarita, if by any means they want to reach out to you and either give you their testimonial or reach out for support or say I want to help out or edit this or whatever it may be, I guess where can people reach out to you?
You can just do any of my social media, which is Pippi Sinks, and that's PIPPISINKS. That's any social media you can find me on. And then I do have a Facebook, just Amanda Sinks. And then I do have an email, which is filmqueenproductions@gmail.com. I also, on my social media, will be putting a flyer up, and I can also send that to you guys if you wanted to have that.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, we're all for helping out and giving artists a bigger platform where they can reach people and work with other artists. Even we've had on another local activist who she's got her own background in the arts. She's been at several of the protests.
Cool.
If I can get the two of you to meet, that would rock. Because she's like, I'll put it this way: she's one of the like last OG protesters, young protesters of Santa Clarita who's still here.
Oh, wow.
Amanda, thank you so much. I know this was kind of a quick go around in terms of getting you on the show, and then
No worries. Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Having our setup tonight, but this whole process just sounds fascinating, and it fills my heart with joy, the fact that you're doing this. And, I just want to say thank you so much for having this idea.
Yeah, no, thank you guys for letting me on. And then this is just really a platform. This is for everyone that's been, mistreated, misjudged, oppressed, harassed, all of that, just assaulted. This is for them. This is going to be their, their platform, their moment. So that's all for them.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Sebastian, I don't know if you have any last minute questions or anything you want to throw in before we wrap up.
I'm just more blown away, honestly. I mean, that's predominantly the reason why I stayed quiet throughout the majority of it. I just couldn't help but become more and more engrossed in the topic. But one
day I'll drive you through Santa Clarita, and
what's to see? The mountains are pretty. That's about it.
There's another fire, by the way. I've had two fires in 24 hours. So and one of them was literally like right next to me. So it was wonderful. Not to mention a community service project that I made almost burnt down yesterday. So that was fun. Thankfully it didn't. So otherwise I genuinely would be.
Yeah, that would have been a bad day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, before we close things up, Sebastian, where can the good people find you?
All right, the laundry list. So yeah, no, I'm being serious here when I say that, because you could find me on a plethora of platforms, and I just had an energy drink, so I am ready to go.
All right.
Okay. So you could find me, social media, getting that out of the way. You could find me on both Twitter and Instagram under the handles of Dr. Sebi. Twitter is going to have an underscore in there. That is Dr_SEBBY. Instagram is all one word, DRSEBBY. You can also find me on YouTube as well as Anchor under the handle of Shugsy's Storytime, as well as Seabass, like the fish. There I post daily narrations as well. When it comes to my profession, you can as well shoot me an email at Sebastian Shug Publishing. You could just find that on Google as well. Feel free to shoot me an email or send me a text. All my information is on there. If you happen to have a book in need of publishing, feel free to do that. Other than that, that's about it. Actually, the list seems to be shrinking by the day now that I think about it, but it's probably just because I'm talking fast while I say it.
Yeah.
It's about it. Yeah, just look for me online, Sebastian Shug. Sebastian Shug Publishing, Better Business Bureau approved or accredited, however you say. Working the good people find you as well.
So, when I'm not dwelling on whether or not to just totally stay off social media, even though our show needs social media, you can find me on Twitter at ManciniRA, and on Instagram you can find me at ManciniRyan. Yeah, it's and if anything too, for listeners out there, and obviously there's a lot of them, but try and check out some of the shades of, insert high school initials here.
There's also a shades of SCB.
Oh, okay, interesting. I got to check that out now. Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Check those out. The stories are going to break your heart, but just know that people are coming out and saying these things, and it's stuff that does need to be said. It's getting something off your chest. It's getting something out that you have it buried, and, you just need somebody to hear you out. And
yeah. And like one thing that sucks about it is that people are saying that like you don't know if this is real, like because it's anonymous. So I can't wait to have like my film where you can see someone and like you're like, well, no, that person's real because they're right there telling it.
Exactly. It's because I saw one very there was one testimonial that hit really hard for me, and I'm forgetting the exact logistics behind it, but somebody did comment that, probably you were assuming this and you were offended by that. And it's just like, really? Like, would you do that to, somebody that just lost their home? You're going to make a bunch of fire jokes in front of them?
Like, are you really going to say that stuff in front of them if they're saying, like, I can't believe some of the people that are, like, arguing with them. I was like, oh, my God.
Yeah. Oh, and trust me, we had somebody who, basically said the same thing about our last Instagram post, which showed a headless statue of Christopher Columbus. And I just deleted the comment because it's like, well, you're having fun, Mr. Chaos, but so are we. We're getting rid of anti-humanity statues, So
yeah, like if anyone wants those things to be up, you can leave.
I'll leave it at this. If we could just replace everything with a Paddington statue, I'd be okay with it.
Now you're thinking.
I'd be totally okay with it, and I'll make this the last point, which is somebody I'm close to said they should just get rid of statues in general. And to be on brand, on brand for the show, of course, I told this person there's only one statue that I will defend, and that is the Yoda statue at Skywalker Ranch, which, by the way, somebody actually went to that statue. It's part of a fountain, and they actually wrote in green chalk underneath it, "Black Lives Matter." And
but they wrote it in like Yoda language, right?
They did, yeah. And the funny thing is, Lucasfilm then shared that photo.
Yeah, I think I remember saying that.
They were like, yeah, we're okay with this. Matter, Black Lives do. That's the line.
Yeah, that was it. Yep.
Great photo. Anyway, well, once again, Amanda, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're definitely going to be following what you're working on and having you back in the future. And,
I'd love to be back whenever.
Oh, yeah. Since we're meant to be kind of a conglomerate of different artists that they all have their own kind of unique artwork that reflects back our society. You know, we have a special phrase that we always give our guests, or we always say to our guests when we wrap up, which is, Amanda, welcome to Mars.
All right. Like it.
You've been listening to Mars on Life. Please make sure that you find us over on social media at Mars on Life Show on both Twitter and on Instagram. And on top of that, you can find this show on Anchor, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Our artwork is done by Zachary Erbrick, and our intro music is Space Explorers by Kevin MacLeod. I've been Ryan Mancini. My co-host, as always, is Sebastian Shug. And just remember, if you keep on going, you'll make it to Mars.